Well, in response to Pelosi's visit, China has suspended all cooperation with the US on climate change. The two countries are the world's biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, and it's feared that halting bilateral talks will set back the fight against global warming. Let's speak now to Isabel Hilton, founder and senior advisor at China Dialogue on this issue. Isabel, many thanks for joining us. What do recent events mean for the global ambition to address climate change?
Well, I think you can guess that by looking at the difference between the Copenhagen Conference of the Parties and the Paris Conference of the Parties. In Copenhagen, the US and China were not collaborating. They were at loggerheads over a number of issues, and the whole thing broke down. Then Barack Obama and Xi Jinping decided that they would cooperate, and they worked together to deliver an agreement in Paris, which is now the foundation of our global action on climate change. And this shows you the difference between what happens when the world's two big powers, two big emitters, work together on a problem that, after all, isn't a bilateral problem. It's a problem that affects everyone on the planet. So it does make a difference. This is not saying that China is going to reduce its domestic mitigation, or indeed that the United States will reduce its domestic mitigation. But the joint action of the world's two big powers is absolutely essential to moving this process forward at the speed that we need to move forward.
So then can China and US relations get back on track, do you think? And if so, how long will it take?
Well, it's very hard to guess, but Xie Jinping and John Kerry, his counterpart, have been working very hard, if you like, to ring-fence climate cooperation to protect it from the antagonism that has been mounting between the United States and China, because they recognize that this is an existential problem for life on the planet, for human life, for non-human life on which we all depend. So it can't be a bargaining chip between two big powers. They have a bigger responsibility than that, both to their own people, but also to everyone else in the world, the poor countries who have done nothing to create the situation but will suffer from it. Vulnerable countries that may become unlivable. This is not about, as I say, about bargaining between two powers. And I think that if they can return to that thought, which inspired a limited but important agreement in Glasgow just last year, that they would work, for example, together on reducing methane, then we can get back on track. It need not affect the bigger relationship, the other quarrels. Those are really unrelated. This is a common problem for all humanity.
And you've already touched on it, but when it comes to global warming, how important is it that countries work together, or can they actually go it alone?
Well, they can go it alone up to a point, and of course they have to do both. So every country, has a pledge. It makes a pledge under the Paris Agreement. It tells the world what it will do, and this matters more for some countries than for others. The European Union is a really important actor in this. Even Britain has, done a lot in terms of reducing its own carbon footprint. But we're getting to a point that climate change and the necessary action on climate change is going to become an element, for example, in trade discussions, an element in security discussions, an element in refugee flows. This is not going to be contained within one country. So, for example, in the European Union, if the steel industry decarbonizes, the EU wants to protect the steel industry from competition from cheaper imports from high carbon geographies. Otherwise, the steel industry is going to be at a disadvantage for doing the right thing. So that even when you do have domestic action, you try to go it alone. If you trade at all, if you have economic relations across borders at all, this is definitely going to become an element in the whole climate discussion. And the other thing that is, if countries go it alone, what happens to the vulnerable countries? It's the UN system that is the only way that they can get the kind of support that they need to pursue a low-carbon pathway, or indeed the kind of compensation that they need for the harm that they're suffering but didn't cause. So, yes, countries can, as it were, go alone, but it's very limited. and we need a much bigger picture than that.
Isabel Hilton, founder and senior advisor at China Dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.